Stay more comfortable, more concealed, and in the stand longer with Osseo gear. Premium camouflage apparel created for bow hunters by bow hunters. Osseo's revolutionary patented camo patterns and innovative features are designed to keep whitetail bow hunters totally invisible and dead quiet. Elevate your game with Osseo. Visit asiogear.com and take 20% off your purchase with code TRUTH20. Mobile hunters, our buddies over at Tethered are always innovating to keep us more mobile and in the game when it counts. From the Tethered One Sticks, the Fast Pack, to the Ultra Lock saddle, Tethered is always designing to increase comfort and utility while reducing bulk, weight, and fiddle factor of mobile hunting gear. And now, they've outdone themselves yet again by creating the carbon fiber forged Predator CFX platform, the latest fully featured mobile saddle platform that raises the bar for what's possible in mobile hunting gear. Whether you're new to saddle hunting or an old tree climbing veteran, go to tetherednation.com for all your saddle hunting gear. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today I got my buddy on, Mr. Josh Profitt. What's going on, dude?
Drinking this gas station coffee. What's up?
Yeah, Jill. I'm not drinking gas station coffee, fortunately, but hey, I do like me a good gas station coffee. I usually that's one of the things. You know how you have certain tastes or smells make you think of like certain places or whatever. For me, there's like a certain way like gas station coffee kind of makes your mouth feel like all dried out, like you've been chewing on a piece of leather. You know what I mean? Like, and that always reminds me of whenever I'm traveling to hunt, because it's, you know, especially if it's a long distance, you know, like the one that rings true for me in my mind is whenever I went to Montana with my buddies. We drove whatever it was. I want to say it was close to like 36 hours or something, like 39 hours. And we drove it straight through. The three of us just took shifts driving. And so every time we would stop, we'd get in like another gas station coffee. And it was just like the worst. I mean, you're getting stuff that's been sitting out for 24 hours. It just like, it's god awful. But that's what it reminds me of. So it's like, even though it sucks, I actually kind of like gas station coffee because it tells me I'm going to go hunt.
Yeah, I hear you. It's hot pot. It's those what is it? The hot pockets or the hot melts. That's what it is for me. Those take me back.
Do they really?
Oh yeah, it makes me think of November every time.
Really? Yeah.
Or the pizza puff. That's it. The pizza puff.
Got the pizza. Get that pizza puff. You know you're hunting. Yeah, it's funny. I jumped in. I had the trailer. You know, the hunting trailer sitting out in the garage or in the driveway, and when I built it, you know, I was cutting wood and building stuff in it, stuff like that, and it had like this wood smell. You know, like fresh construction kind of smell. And I just had assumed, you know, like within like a year it would go away, like get it lived in a little bit, go do a hunting trip, and, you know, it'll smell like ass in no time, you know. And the funny thing is like it still smells the same way. It still smells like I just made it, like I just built it. And so every time I go out, and now that smell for me is like very, like it means hunting to me. And so I'll go out into the trailer and, because I'll keep like hunting gear and stuff out there, some boots and stuff like that. And I'll go grab something out of there and I hit that smell and I'm immediately like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, yeah.
all of a sudden I get a little fired up and I'll text Chad. I'll be like, hey man, just got in the hunting trailer, smelled hunting season. I'm ready. I'm fired up. Like,
I feel you.
Yeah. But you're joining us this year, aren't you, man? Aren't you, aren't we having we're going to have the trifecta, the three of us this year together, me, you, and Chad?
That's up to y'all. I do what I want to do now, so I'm 100% in.
Yeah. Well, dude, you don't need no invite from us there, buddy. You're in.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm down. I haven't done a out-of-state deer hunt in a while, so.
Nice.
It's got me excited.
Yeah, dude. It'll be, because Chad texted me on, what was it? Saturday? Maybe. Can't remember what day. He was like, hey, he's like, this fall, he was like, what do you think of Profitt coming? And I was like, yeah. That was basically like the response. It was pretty immediate. I was like, yeah, Profitt should totally be coming with us.
It was weird because I had texted him or vice versa, and then you had texted me all within like the same hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was just like, and he told me you were going, I was like, well, yeah, I'm down 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great spot too, man. It'll be a lot of fun. Well, I mean, Chad and I have, great time on those trips and stuff like that, just in general, living out of the trailer, hunting all day. The spot, and we'll talk about it more like offline, but it's a cool little area that we have a little bit of history with, and in good history too, so it's one of those places where it's like we could all have a lot of fun and do real well. So I'm pretty stoked for that. And I got a little redemption too. I need to get back since I lost one there that year we were there. So
that's right.
Got to go try to right that wrong,
Uh-huh. It'll be good.
That's right. So, man, it's been a while since we had a chance to chop it up, dude. I think I went back and I looked. It's been probably almost 2 years. Been way too long. We've texted and stuff like that, through the course of the years and stuff. But, man, your background looks a lot different, if people don't know, like you're at your barbershop for what you used to do for a living. And, I remember wherever you were you and I were texting and you were making a change and stuff like that. And I was super stoked for you because it was all kind of geared around just having more time for yourself, your family and stuff like that. But, man, just talk to me a little bit about that. Like what kind of brought that on? How's the change been? Is it what you were looking for? Is it what you hoped it would be? And then how's it kind of impacted your hunting? Like, as an aside, I know that's not the most important thing, but I'm sure there's been an impact there.
Oh yeah. So, I co-mined for a very long time, like most of my adult working career. And I had a buddy that went to barber school. I mean, just to shoot you straight, he was making more money than I was coal-mining. And after a year of watching him, make the cash, I just switched over and enrolled to barber school. And I'm not going to lie, like I went absolutely broke, like broke. First school I went to shut down when I was halfway done. The next school didn't open up when they were supposed to. Just wasn't it didn't go good. Finally got done with school, started in a shop, man, and in my hometown there's 37 barbershops. Wow. It was a struggle, man. And I knew that I wanted my own shop, and I knew I had to get away from like the big cities. And I just found a little Mayberry town kind of in between a few different big towns with some industrial stuff close. And I think I've been open a little over 2 months now. The day that I opened, I think I was fully booked the day that the door opened up on the shop. So wow. I couldn't, wow. I'm working my butt off, but it's been good, man. It's been really good. If I want a day off, I literally just take the day off. It's that simple.
Right. Yeah. That's nice, man. So what, it's whenever I don't remember how I found out, like whether I saw like either you sent me a message or it was a post or something like that. And like, I can't imagine, like I would butcher my haircut. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't imagine, like that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, man, I don't know that I could cut somebody's hair. Like, I just don't think that I could do it. It's like I have a barber that I go to. They're awesome, and I prefer to go to a barber shop just because it's like I'm a quick dude, man. It's like I want to get in and I want to get out. And they're good people. It's like a rock and roll kind of joint. They're like old school punk rockers. So, like, there's good music and, right. Like a good vibe. They'll give me like I'll walk in and like, hey, you want a bourbon? You want a scotch? Type of thing. You can have a drink while you're there. But I mean, they always do a really good job, and but I'm always like, because don't get me wrong. Whenever you made the switch, I was like, man, maybe that's something I should do, And then I was like, man, ain't nobody want me to cut their hair, dude.
Man, it's not that bad. The weirdest thing for me was like touching the guys in the beginning. You know what I mean? Like rubbing on their heads, and that was the hardest thing for me to get adjusted to. I'm so OCD, I knew I would be good at the haircuts, but the whole touching the guys I'm over it now, but that was the weird thing for me. Definitely. Yeah. But it's been good, like I'm in a small town, but when I say small, there's two stoplights here.
Right.
So
Right.
I do a lot of the local farmers. I do a lot of the hunters in the area, and it's pretty cool to see the opportunity that I got behind the chair. Hopefully, and it's really cool seeing all the deer that nobody knows about. I mean, that nobody knows about. Like I got one kid that comes in here. He's probably not. He's probably around 30 years old, and I think he's killed 6 booners with a bow.
Whew.
And I don't even think he's like really post a picture or anything of them. So
That's wild. I was just gonna say, man, especially like if you got all the miners or all the farmers and stuff coming in, dude, you're gonna get the drop on some good stuff. You know,
I
because
I hope so. I hope.
you know, because everybody trusts their barber, man. I mean, you tell your barber like things you don't tell your family. You know what I mean? Like for real, they become kind of
Yeah.
like they become. I found this out, even whenever I was bartending back in the day, whenever I was in the band and stuff like that. Like, it's just that. I don't quite know how to say it, but it's almost like that whenever you're in one of those positions, especially if it's like, like the bar that I worked at was very much like a community area. Like all the musicians hung out there. It was very like a known place, right? And I feel like barbershops are kind of the same way. Like you become a staple of the community and like a trusted kind of confidant, if you will, right? For whatever reason, right? Because you're kind of an impartial, like I don't have a dog in the fight one way or the other. So they tell you everything, and you become kind of like a pseudo psychiatrist, because they sit down. It's like the 20 to 30 minutes if they're having a drink at a bar or if they're sitting in your barber chair. It's that 20 to 30 minutes where no one's vying for their time, where they can just say and talk and think and whatever, and not be under the gun for pressure for got to get this done at work or got to mow the grass or whatever. No, it's like it's those are your 20 or 30 minutes that you're getting.
It's true, man. Like I never know who's going to walk through that door and change my life.
Right. Hey,
I
man,
mean,
that's a great way to look at it, dude.
you know what I mean? So that turns into me having a hard time getting out of here in the afternoons because I'd like to close at 5, but do you close at 5 or do you stop taking haircuts at 5 or do you stay later? Because I mean, I've cut hair till 10 o'clock in here at night. Like that's how busy I can be if I want to be. And I've been
Right.
here late on Saturdays, and um, I don't know anybody that starts to look like they're a farmer and they're walking in here. I'm going to cut them. I don't care if it's closing time or not.
Right. That's right,
So
man. That's right. It's like, so, hey, you seen any good bucks in those bean fields?
yeah, I had one guy come in here, and you can pick them out easy, and
Hmm.
he didn't want change. Gave me $100 bill. He didn't want change for. He wanted to pay for several haircuts up front,
Right.
and I was like, I get, that's fine. And then 5 minutes into it, I figured out that he owns 13,000 acres.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
right here. So
Right.
we'll see.
Nice. That's awesome, man. So, so I'm guessing, you're hunting freed up a good bit this year for the first time. Cause I remember like the biggest thing when we've talked in years past, the one thing I always kind of appreciated about you and still do, you're always kind of hunting hard hunts, hard to hunt places, pressured areas in Kentucky. And you were often doing it on a short time, just
Mhm.
because of your schedule, work, family, stuff like that. And you were still able to have consistency, and it's one of those things where, if you talk to guys and they'll always ask like, what's a key to like having success? And I'm always like, man, a guy who only gets 5 or so days to hunt, like he can't kind of think about his success the same as someone else who gets 20, 30, whatever days to hunt. Right. I was like, cause the percentage of, the odds of killing a good buck just in general is like 1% of the time, and if you only get a chance to hunt 5, 6 days, could take you 3 or 4 years, what I mean, to kill that buck. And so if you do it once every 3 or 4 years and you're only able to hunt that many days a year, like that's a pretty good run. You know what I mean? And that was the one thing I always kind of appreciated about you is like you had consistency and you were often doing it on short time, you know, and fitting it in between all your other obligations. So how did it feel last year whenever you were able to kind of, you know, make your own schedule to a degree, maybe chase the weather fronts you want to chase, or in years past, you might have had to watch them kind of roll by?
The last 2 years have been good. Like I've killed the last 2 years, and like nobody even knows about the deer I killed this year.
Really?
Yeah, nobody even knows. I didn't even take a picture of it. But 2 years ago, I've killed both my deer late season. I killed my deer 2 years ago, December 28th, and I killed my deer last year, the very last day of season. So I've really been freed up 2 years. So 2 seasons ago when I was hunting bones, I think I did 56 or 58 sets. And I was real hungry that year. Last year wasn't as bad. I was too busy trying to build up clientele. But if I wanted to hunt, you know, I hunted and I was able to, you know, watch the weather fronts and schedule my days off. And it was good, man. I've definitely been blessed to be able to really do like whatever I want to do.
Right.
And what's that?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, finish your thought, because I had a question after that.
I was just going to say that, you know, to anybody listening, I just feel like no matter what you do, like hard work eventually pays off. So
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. Yeah. It's like you always have to, you got to fill the bucket before you can dump it out. Right.
And and so many people like talk about like, you know, like making that jump or that leap. And like when I say like when I went broke doing this, like I literally went broke. Like I sold my house, I sold my truck, drained the savings, just things like that. You know, had to sell my camera, sold a lot of stuff just to try to get by and to make ends meet until I could, you know, to get to work.
Right. Yeah. It's like people oftentimes don't see the sacrifice in the background that happens, you know, and that's scary, man. Like there's a lot of commitment that's there where it's like, you just got to have the blind faith that you're going to be able to pull, like you're able to pull it off. Right. Like that's part of it. It's like, you got to just have the vision of what it is you want and go, no matter what, this is what I'm doing. And if I just keep chipping away, it'll land where it's supposed to land. It might not feel the way I think it's supposed to feel. It might not happen in the same time frame that I think it should happen, but it'll get there, right?
And it's kind of all just like God's plan. And I've always had the mindset like if I want something, I'm going to get it. And it may not be as soon as I want it or how I wanted to get it, but you know, I'm going to achieve it. So I didn't have nothing to lose, you know, when I opened this barber shop. I wasn't losing a big clientele in my hometown. I'd already lost everything I'd ever worked for in my whole life, you know, like I'd already put that behind me. And, you know, looking, you know, sitting here now, it's just like it's the best decision I've ever made in my life.
Right.
Shit,
Man, go ahead.
I don't miss anything anymore. I don't miss ball games. I don't miss anything.
Right. I was just going to say, man, like how, how, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Like, how do you kind of reconcile, building this whole life that you had previously and in the things and, or whatever the case is, right? And just, get good with going, like, I got to leave all that stuff behind, right? Because I think a lot of people have this idea, and shoot, I'll include myself in this, where you're like, okay, this is the thing that I want to do, right? Or maybe there's an opportunity to go do something different or whatever, but you don't quite see like the destination yet. You know what I mean? And so you're hesitant to kind of make the leap because I can't see what the end goal is. I can't see where that's at. I have an idea of what it is, but I can't tell how it's going to turn out, right? Like there's not a guarantee at the end of the rainbow, right? And in order to do it, like you're talking about, man, like you said, I got good with basically losing everything that I had. Like, how do you do that? Because I think, that's a mindset trip that I think a lot of people avoid, right? And rightly so, right? And two, if they did have the opportunity, I don't think most people could stomach it.
Yeah, I think I just got really good at being really uncomfortable. I mean, if I'm being honest, like when I lost everything and like I had the life, I had the big boat at one time and I built a house in 2016 with the sod and all the landscaping, I had like the perfect cookie cutter life and like literally it's all gone, like every bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, but sitting here right now talking to you, like I think an obtainable goal in 2 to 3 years, like I can have all that back. I know I can, and
Right.
be working for myself, making my own schedule. You know, literally doing whatever I want to do.
Right. Yeah. That's the piece there is like, is the confidence in yourself to kind of go get it done. Right. Like that 2 to 3 year plan. Right. And it wasn't like you jumped in it without a plan. Like you had a plan. Right.
No, I did have a plan, and my plan it fell apart, but I did have I had a plan, but it's just I was so driven, and I have 4 kids, like I can't just lay down,
Right.
and I can't just give up. So it was just all in, and like it had to work. There was no way that it wasn't going to work because I had no other choice but for it to work.
Right. Man, there's so many success stories like that. Whenever you see people who are ultra successful, there's usually like this no safety net, right? Like one of the best ways for someone to fail at something is give them a safety net, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have that, like so many success stories of, whether it's a Mark Cuban or whomever, right? Where it was like he had no other choice other than to succeed. There wasn't a plan B for him. You know what I mean? It's you become real resourceful with whatever you have. Like you said, like you made a plan, and I always said, and then this was the same way whenever I was in the band and stuff like that. It's like I had a plan, and then oftentimes the plans would fall apart, but you would just pivot off the plan. But like you needed to have a plan to start with because you had to have pivot points. You had to have an opportunity. Like, okay, we accomplished this, we laid this much of the plan, so now we can go do these things. Like, at least having a plan creates opportunity, like kind of pathways for different opportunities, and you just have to make decisions on which way you're going to go, essentially. Right.
Very true. And I can't take 100% credit for me because I did have some good people like standing behind me, like, backing me with whatever, whether it was money or just the mindset of them telling me like, you can do it, like, don't give up. So I do, I can't take success. I can't claim all the success because like I did have some good people just like pushing me to it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's with anything. I think in life, right? Like people with determination and will attract people. Like that's appealing to people, right? And so when you start doing and they see it, it's like all of a sudden the support then comes because it's like, hey, I remember I had a business meeting with a guy. I was probably in my 20s maybe, and I had this idea, and we're kind of pitching some people to kind of start this idea, and had a breakfast with this guy, and he wasn't like a potential investor necessarily. He was more just like a guy who was like willing to be kind of a mentor, and just be like, hey, you're young, let me help give you some advice and whatever. And I remember he said that I don't make bets on businesses, I make bets on horses. And basically what he meant was that the business is not really of any interest to me, like as to what it is, what widget you're making or what business you're trying to open or whatever. But can I bet on the horse? Like meaning like, yeah, exactly. I'm not betting on the business. I'm betting on like, if I place a bet, I'm betting on you because I think even if this one doesn't work, like there's something, you'll do something that will work, And that was, eye-opening for me, like being a 20-something-year-old kid, because it was more about how I carried myself and what I was capable of and how much confidence I had and my willingness to grind and stuff like that was the more important thing than the whatever idea I have at the moment, you know. And I think that's probably what people see with you. I mean, I'd bet on your horse, dude, for as long as I've known you, no matter what it is. You know what I mean? Like if you and Chad were going to wrestle, I'd bet on you, you know, because we still need to see that.
I mean, I'm going to hurt him one of these days.
Maybe Missouri this year. Maybe that's what.
Yeah,
maybe we'll have a.
Chad, he messaged me out of the blue or commented on something this week, and all I said was pussy.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. I always tell him like now that, you know, I was like, you might be bigger than me, dude. I was like, but I've got some fight skills now. I was like, so we'll see like during camp if I can take you or not, you know. Roll him around in the yard a little bit out front in the trailer, you know.
One of us is going to get hurt. If one of us is going to be a cameraman or something.
Yeah. Exactly. I sent him a picture of like mangled up because I'm starting to, like, my ears are starting to get messed up from training, like getting cauliflower ear and stuff like that. My wife hates it, by the way. But I sent him a picture the other day of like these ears that are all just like mangled up. It says guys with these types of ears have 125% chance of kicking your ass. Oh shit.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, he's a good sport though, man. This will get him fired up. He'll be ready to roll when we get to the it'll be a Royal Rumble now when we get to Missouri for sure. But all right, man. So let's transition here. So, you know, you made this big transition, you know, and for a lot of good reasons, man. Like you were saying, like I'm stoked that you're able to, you know, you're not missing ball games and family time and all that kind of stuff, man, which I know is super important to you. You're a family man, you know, before anything. And so I know that's been huge, you know, but that's, you know, the obvious thing is also as a hunter, it's like you get some opportunities to hunt and, you know, a little bit more time in the woods and stuff like that. And I know this was probably like 2 years ago, but we haven't talked in a while. And there was a deer that you had let me know about, you know, many, many moons ago, you know, called Bones that you were chasing, who was just a mega giant. And then the story kind of ended and we can tell that kind of story, but I'm like, I don't know that I ever knew how you found that deer or how long you knew of that deer. I remember you just had messaged me at one point about him and I was just like, oh damn, like that's like a world-class freaking animal. And, but I wasn't sure like of the backstory 100%. Like I never really actually talked to you about it. So what was the backstory of that deer? Like how long did you know of him? How'd you find him?
So I got to give credit to my friend Joe Welsh. Like we had 3 years worth of history of the deer, and it was all because of my friend. Not necessarily just because of him, but like I did not like hunting where this deer was. Like there's a bunch of property there, and I'm gonna try not to like give the location away without giving it away. But I just didn't like hunting it, and had Bones as a 2-year-old. He was non-typical, probably 140 inches maybe as a 2-year-old. I didn't really want to shoot him, but I was trad bow hunting then. But there was a really big 8-pointer. When I say big, like mid 50s, that I would have liked to kill. So I hunted him a little bit. No luck. The next year, which would have been 3 years ago, Bones went typical. So it went from not typical to typical, and everybody asked me like, "How you know?" But just like when you mess with one deer, I mean, you just know. And he was a booner, but he was just typical. And I didn't really hunt him as a 3-year-old. I didn't spend no time there. And next year rolls around, Bones is 4 years old. My buddy's getting pictures of him starting like now. And he's sending me pictures of him like, you're going to come hunt this deer with me? You're going to come hunt this deer with me? And it's really close to my house, really close. And about July, the deer looked over 200 inches in July. well, way over 200 inches. And I was like, you know what? It's a deer of a lifetime. Like, yeah,
Right.
I'm going to hunt him. And still, I think I was one of the only few people to have ever like seen him in person.
Hmm.
I've seen him a couple times during the summer on some beans, and it was just amazing, man. Like, if you didn't have pictures of him and you were literally looking at him like through like a spotting scope, like he really did look 300 inches. I mean, because I took pictures of him and it doesn't even look real. But that's how I come to find out about bones. Like it had nothing to do with me. Basically, a friend put me on the deer that was also hunting the deer, and he literally just pushed me on him and pushed me on him and pushed me on him. And when he got to 4 years old, and he was 234 inches when they killed him. Like a deer like that, that's 15 minutes from your house is it's hard to pass up. So 2 years ago, I was all in on him the year that he died.
Yeah. So, what was it about the spot that you didn't, and without giving it away, if you can, that you didn't like hunting that area?
Really thick, and not that I don't mind thick, but it was all thick. Like there were no edges or transition lines. Like when I say thick, like the deer could be 40 yards away and you never know it thick, or 30. And
Right.
a lot of it was by some very busy highways. You couldn't hear nothing, you couldn't see nothing. And the deer would literally, like a lot of the deer, they would just appear. Like there wasn't a lot like looking on your phone or daydreaming. Like you really had to be, like on your cues. And with, I knew I was all over him. So it was just like, I think it gave me anxiety hunting him, because I either thought I was pushing him around, and which I had to have been pushing him around, or literally I was like, this deer's within bow range. And, I don't even know he's there. You can't go in there and
Right.
cut shooting lanes, and you got two shooting lanes, one at 12 yards and one at 16, and that's all you can shoot. And the deer could walk by right beside you 10 yards, and you couldn't ever shoot him if he didn't go through one of those lanes.
Right.
So, and this piece was privately owned, and you paid a trespassing fee. You could bait it. There was bait piles everywhere, which in my opinion just keeps the deer nocturnal and messes them all up. Just anything you can think of that you didn't want as a hunter, like as a diehard bow hunter, like me that's hunted public land for 15, 17 years, like just didn't like it. There was no big adventure to me. Like I never had a big long walk, like I could walk 200 yards from my truck to my stand. And I don't know, I was just totally out of my element there. I'm used to big hills and literally feeling like you're in the middle of nowhere and nobody's around. And this place too, the deer density was, I think I did 30 sits and seen 2 deer, something like that.
Yeah. That's rough.
Very,
I mean, especially
it was like mentally challenging.
right, especially like those areas that are super thick like that. Like they're hard to hunt just on a one-off basis because, to your point, it's like you can't. There's a difference between being thick, hunting thick stuff where deer want to be, and spend time, versus hunting thick stuff where you can't even really move, see, like
or get into hunt. You know what I mean?
Or get into hunt. Yeah.
And that's kind of how this is. And I'm not saying there wasn't some open places, but the deer is not going to walk down the one halfway open ridge,
Right.
And it just, man, it was tough, man. And you couldn't hide from people, that there was just a lot of road traffic. And,
that sounds like this deer had a lot of people on him also, which made it.
It started to, and then like I had to burn a couple of friendships over it. Like they were dropping pins on my truck, and
Wow.
yeah, just things like that. So it was just, I don't know, like Nathan Killen told me one time that he hates hunting a real popular deer, and it's not for me. Like, this deer right here that my buddy killed last year was right there where Bones was, and it scored more. I mean, it's a 240-inch deer, and it was in the exact same place as Bones was last year, and I never hunted it one time. If that tells you how bad I hate hunting
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, yeah, there's a different, I've never pursued a single deer that a bunch of other people knew about, but, there are areas that I know that are good, that produce decent deer for the area. Right. And then I know how I feel whenever I start to see more people kind of happening upon, that spot where it's just, there's a frustration there because like I'm looking for like an experience, to, go and chase a critter, or, I've stole this from you for years, man. I'll give you credit here while we're on the line together. But I've said, I hunt like a coyote. I hunt for opportunity. And I took that from you because I remember the first time you and I talked years ago now, like you mentioned that to me and it just kind of stuck with me, especially if you're hunting hard to hunt places in public and stuff like that. And so for me, whenever I stop doing that and I start trying to focus on one deer or a specific area because I know it's going to produce or whatever, and maybe other people know about it, it does kind of diminish it a little bit, right? Because the element of surprise, I think partially is what I learned the past couple of years is the part that I really, really like, of not knowing what might happen,
Mm-hmm.
To the point that, last year, I mean, I always run trail cameras because I use them more for historical data to kind of know what's happening in different areas and know whenever something gets good or not. But I didn't check any of them last year during the course of the year, and that was part of, partially what I felt like made the season as enjoyable as it was that, the deer that I killed, both of them, I mean, I had no clue that either of them existed, until they showed up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've never been like a big buck hunter. Like I just haven't. Like I shoot all the deer that everybody else says they'll pass. Like the walls full of 130-inch deers behind me. Um,
Mm,
but then I also feel like, like a lot of people, the way that social media gears it, like a lot of these people that are hunting like one specific deer, and I'm not saying all of them, but majority of them they're hunting private. I mean,
mm,
they are.
yeah.
Uh,
I think, for me, hunting a specific deer is, I think it's kind of like what you had going on, where for your area, if there's a deer that is like you might only ever get one time to do that, you know, like for me, that would be a reason why I would do that. If it's like truly like one of those things where I may never see this type of deer again in this area or in my life, potentially. Then to me, it's worth kind of throwing that one kind of season at it or whatever. But I'm the same as you, where it's like, I started hunting my hunt and whatever's going to, make me happy and whatever I'm going to be interested in is going to keep me fulfilled and keep me wanting to get up in the morning and go out and do it. You know what I mean? Like that's part of it too, man. It's like if it gets to the point of being a time suck for you or making you unhappy, right? It's like you're not going to get up and go do it, and I just don't want to get to that point. It's like I'd rather just not even know what's going to happen, and the excitement of not knowing be the reason why I'm getting out of bed.
oh yeah, absolutely. Because I know that the year that I did hunt him, like it took the element of surprise was gone, the excitement was gone. Like I'm telling you, when I was literally anxious, like, and then like it's the truth, and then you got this huge cell phone, or the cell cam debate going on, which I could give two shits about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just specifically remember, like, I got a picture of Bones one time in the daylight while I was hunting about 400 yards away, and I knew there was no way he would make it over to me. Like, I was 100% positive.
Right.
And I just remember like I just got down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, that was eye opening to me too, like, man, I'm really not having very much fun out here.
Right. Do you think it would have been different if you were chasing him on a big track of public? Do you think it would have changed for you?
Oh yeah, because this deer, man, it was a very unique situation. Like he was not leaving. Most of his time he spent, I felt, was like on 60 acres. And somebody was like, well, how do you not kill a deer on 60 acres? And I'm not
Right.
saying that's where he spent his life, but like that's where he was spending a lot of his time. I'm positive.
Right.
But he, before the rut, man, he was just so tough because he would get down in this like 5 acre bottom, and you just couldn't hunt it, like just because of the way the wind was. And I mean, I literally felt like he knew he was there before you were ever even in the tree,
Mm.
and um, just that type of deal. So if he was on a big track of public, it would have been game on, 100%.
Right.
I would have liked it more, but um, that's the biggest deer I've ever had on trail camera. But I bet I've had 8 or 10 200-inch deer on camera,
Dang.
and I haven't really even messed with them, just because
Mm.
in the past I only had 4 days to hunt. And I want to like I was I put obtainable goes out, and that's just you can't chase a deer that's running 3,000 acres because until you hunted like I've hunted and with as many cameras, like you don't realize like how far some of these deer like really will go. And I'm not talking about like just during the rut. I'm talking about just in general. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've had deer in July be over to the west and then a week later be 2 miles away on a bean field. Like people's going to be like, no, you didn't. And I'm like, oh, I have. And I've had them run, I've had them run 800 to 1,000 acres the first 3 weekends of October. And when you only
Mm-hmm.
got 4 days to hunt, scout, like the chances of killing that deer are slim to none.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm just shooting you straight. So I just always just went for opportunity.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm in not 100% a similar situation, but there's what I kind of do, especially hunting a big piece, right? So there's a really big piece that I like to hunt, and I kind of feel the same way, where these deer move so far, and partially because I don't know exactly, I've never seen where you're hunting, but like the spot that I've been spending a lot of time in, like the habitat's not super consistent, and so you'll have a really good area that is very deery or bucky, if you will, right? And then you might have however long distance between that spot and the next spot that might be really, really good food and cover. And so the deer kind of exist in these little pockets, and at least that's what I've kind of found. And so I've tried to find like an aggregate of like groups of good bucks that I could potentially hunt, right? But because there's so much distance between these areas that have good habitat, like to your point, like at least the deer on this spot, like they're consistent, and then all of a sudden, like they're gone and they're in another area, and I'll find them there because I'll have cameras in these different spots, and then they're consistent there, and then they're gone, and they're consistent somewhere else. So they're not like they're maybe not traveling as much distance as like you're experiencing, like on a day to day or week to week basis, but like through the course of the year, like they're moving a lot, like, and it's because they're finding new pockets of stuff because like it's just like it's very much like I tell people it's like hunting, Maine or something like that, because it's just like really good habitat, and then all of a sudden it'll be just like pole timber where you and I could throw a baseball through it, and have play a game of pitch, but they do travel a lot, because the one deer that I was on got killed last year. I didn't hunt him last year, but I hunted him the year before and bumped him, and I watched him for a couple years, and he was at least a 6.5-year-old, and he was killed 4 to 5 miles as the crow flies from where I thought he was living, like Like I thought I knew where he was at, and I mean, I did for part of the year, but like, man, he got killed where it's like, when I found out where he got killed, I was like, you got to be kidding me, man. I was like, that's like, and I looked on the map, and measured it, and it's like, as the crow flies, it was like 4.5 miles. I don't know exactly where he got killed. If he was killed on the front side of this mountain, it's about 4.5 miles. If he was killed on the back side, it's probably closer to 5.5 or so, and I'm just like, I had no clue what that deer was doing. Like he has so much acreage to roam,
Right.
And so that was just like very eye-opening for me, like just a reaffirmation of when you're hunting places like that, you're probably better off hunting for opportunity and finding a group of good bucks that you'd be happy to kill, and just knowing a spot's good and going to have like the things that a good buck wants to spend time, and to give yourself a chance. Cause I think in a lot of those cases you end up just chasing a ghost for the most part.
Man, that's just the difference between like, this is just my opinion of like the public land deer and the private land deer. Like they're just two totally different animals. Like you go hunt a piece of private after hunting public, like I have, like the deer actually do what they're supposed to do and let you hear people, talk about. And I think that, like one of the reasons why a lot of these guys are real successful is because like they're good hunters and they're somewhat hunting smart. The deer just don't leave until the rut. You know what I mean? They don't. And so you're able to kill them. And like, I used to think like I had some historical data. Like I used to think that like as far as like trail cameras and stuff, but like now today, the new, like what I'm going to call like the new wave of the public land hunting, like I'm ready to be done with it because it's so in and it's the fad. Like that whole historical data thing in my area, it's gone. It's totally gone. And it's number one, because of the hunting pressure. And then number two, like a lot of the food plot rotations on a lot of the WMAs I hunt, it affects them too. But I mean, just going by what I've seen from 15 years ago to now, I bet there's 5 or 6 times more people, hunting. Like they say that our hunter numbers are down. I'd argue it every day.
Right. Yeah, I know. I hear that too. And even though PA isn't necessarily a destination state, right? Because I think, you're in that fortunate/unfortunate space of, Kentucky has good deer and more people have understood that. I think people have known that for a while, but like, I don't think they quite grasp like how good the deer potentially were in Kentucky, and it seems like the past several years, Kentucky's become a really, a hot spot, especially for early season. It's like you can go try to kill, a big velvet deer, in Kentucky. And so I think like you're also kind of getting the negative experience of just more people interested in hunting Kentucky because Ohio is, I remember when I was going to Ohio years ago and it was good. And now it's like, man, I probably won't go back just because it gets pounded. The places that I kind of knew of that were hidey hole places, like the last time I was there, it's like you were seeing people, and those were some out of the way spots. And so I think a lot of people have kind of migrated, right? It's like, well, I used to hunt Ohio and it's gotten, a lot of pressure, because obviously, Ohio's known for big deer and good hunting. Well, let's go to Kentucky now, right? It's like, it's just one state, we can just go one state over essentially, right? It's just a little further of a drive. We can get to a place, because for a while it probably didn't have as much pressure. Now it's kind of the same thing. And so I think it kind of goes in these cycles where these different states become hot until you kind of beat the tar out of it. And then people start to leave it because I almost feel like give it another 5-6 years, maybe 10, I don't know exactly the time frame, but Ohio might be good again because people are going to start leaving Ohio because it's so overpressured, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, like the 2 years ago when I killed that deer, December 28th, most of the hunting pressure I see is out of state. Not knocking anybody. Like I totally get it. And most of the people I deal with are from down south.
Okay.
But back in the day, what I say back in the day, 18 years ago, or even shorter, late season public land was a ghost town. I mean, it really was. Like
Mm-hmm.
some of the WMAs, I could drive 5,000 acres and not see nobody. Like maybe a one person rabbit hunting.
Right.
Now it's like a rut hunt all year long, and it just. I think that the deer are still there, but they were hard to kill, and now they're even harder to kill. And because of like just all the content and the information now, like we're all using the same things, we're all using the same gear, we're all using the same tactics, and we're all going to the same places.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's tough.
So thinking of that, man, like, how do you zig while others are zagging then? Right? Like, cause I mean, you're 100% right, man. We're all using the same mapping tools, right? Regardless of what company's tool you're using, they do a lot of the same, just say at the base level, you can kind of navigate, stop there, right? Like, cause that, you now don't worry about getting lost or knowing where you're going or marking spots or whatever, using trail cameras, except, in the States where they're banning them, everyone's hunting mobile, right? There's a ton of different companies out there doing mobile, right? Whether it's, a saddle company, or whether it's a stand company or whatever, everyone's got super light gear now. It's super efficient. Right. And so everyone's able to move around and just, try to be where the deer are or where they're finding sign and, doing more scouting, right. And a little bit more savvy when it comes to kind of knowing what they're looking for and things like that. And so how do you zig while others are zagging to kind of get yourself into some clean space or find opportunities to hunt like that coyote? That coyote's got to eat.
I still think that there are some like unhidden gems, like places where people don't go as much, but it's very far and in between. And I think like the difference between me is like I've been very efficient with the little time that I have, and I just won't quit. You know what I mean? Like I try to be as productive as I can with my day. I've had so many people tell me like over the years, like why are you scouting in November? And I'm like, oh, because I haven't found what I wanted to find yet. So I'm just
Right.
I got to sit in the tree because it's November. But like the deer I killed 2 years ago, it was super cold. We had several inches of snow on the ground, and there was tons of hunters hunting these beans, man. I mean tons, like every day. But when I say beans, there was probably 25 acres of standing beans, like between two plots. So that's a lot of food.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of them fields would have a couple cameras on it. And those the big deer, the giant deer, they would be there at night, for sure. Occasional daytime pictures. And then, so obviously, like people were hunting them, and like all I did was just, literally like, well, I don't want to sit over the food, and all I did was just backtrack, like just thought outside of the box, like where are they really coming from, or where is the deer coming from that's getting here real late at night? You know what I mean? Like where's the deer coming from that gets here at midnight, not an hour after dark? And I just paid attention to the tracks in the snow, man. That was it. Like literally, like where the deer were crossing the county road.
Mm-hmm.
And just looking at my phone, just simple stuff. But I mean, it's all common sense, and I think that there's definitely more people doing it. And I will say that, like today, I feel like there's a chance you're going to get way more lucky today than you are, the skill mindset of it. I just do, because I think the deer on the public land today move less than they ever have.
Right.
And they kill more deer now than they ever have, because there's there's so many more people hunting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think the idea of kind of, I'm trying to figure out how to say it, but looking at the less obvious kind of opportunities, maybe opportunities that in years past you would have passed up as far as, setups or things that you might consider, right? I know I've had to do that just, especially locally. To me, the big piece that I hunt maybe doesn't get as much pressure because it's a little further out of the way. It's not close to like a metro area. Like it's, the towns are small that are around there. And it's just, and it's big acreage, just local to me. It's a lot smaller pieces. So it's harder to find those little hidey holes. But I've kind of had to do what you're kind of talking about and kind of re-examine and just kind of think about, where where are the people going to be primarily, right? Like what spots have I found historically that are good? And I almost start there and go like, those aren't good anymore, and then think about, all right, where's the next spot that I would go to if I were a deer and I was getting pushed off those areas or people were spending time in those areas, where would be the next place I would go, and I had to kind of start doing some of that and just finding some areas that are just this is another thing that I've done and it paid dividends this past year. There was a spot that I found that was pretty good. The access wasn't super terrible. You could access it 2 different ways. And I didn't see a lot of people in it, but I would catch people on camera once in a while. And it had some decent deer in there. And I hunted it once and had a good encounter. And then I hung a camera in there and just let it sit, all of last year. And some things had changed around it. And a couple years had gone by. And so like the access that people used to use got all grown up and just shitty, And so I made my way back in there and snagged that camera and realized like in the past 2 years since the access kind of got messed up, one area of access got messed up, kind of impassable for the most part, not totally, but just a lot harder. And then the other area, which was like historical, like access, and it's actually the access I usually use, just got really grown up, like just almost unrecognizable, right? Where you can't really see where the access is any longer. And so just with that change alone, over the past like 2-ish years, I've not had a person on camera back there, right? So it's almost like looking for those places where the access got worse. Like that to me is like the worse the access, the better the opportunity in the spot is kind of how I started looking at it to a degree.
I think you're right for sure. Like the harder it is to get there, the less people are going to be there. But like here, I'm not in the mountains like, you are, but there's some pretty big hills and stuff here. But, between all the podcasts and everything that everybody says, like, I mean, you got 2 or 3 guys that'll come in November and they'll walk it. And then you got a guy or 2 from out of state that'll bring a boat with him that'll boat into the backside and walk half the distance, but still have to work his tail off to get to it. Mm-hmm. And then you got the local guy that's got a boat, and then you got a local guy that wants to walk back there. And I mean, that's the things I deal with here. And then there may be a 600 acres back there that's hot, but you may have 10 people that are pounding it during November or late October or heck, like even in September, man, like I'm seeing the guys going deep in the timber. I mean, I'm not saying that's bad or good, right? But I'm just saying there's here in my state of Kentucky, like there's so many out of state hunters right now. I mean, like it's, I talk with the guys that run the WMA. I cut our regional biologist. I cut his hair. He's super passionate, young guy, and it just honestly, like they're blown away. That just like basically like the animals can't get a break type deal. That's how like they feel about it. So if that like puts things into perspective. Yeah, and I'm not saying there's opportunity, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't come, but I'm just saying like a lot of things have changed to where like I used to really enjoy it to like this year, like I'm hoping like minus, whatever I do with you and Chad, like I plan on hunting private ground this year.
Right. Right.
So
Do you think that there's ever a chance that Kentucky limits the number of tags that it sells based on just what you've seen over the past however many years?
so some of our really good WMAs have went to a point system, and they only draw 10% out of state people. And so, like for a guy like you, it may take you 5 years to get a tag to hunt on my favorite WMA. But like, but you can the quota hunt will only be from like the last weekend of October to the first week of till December 1st. So like the golden time that we all want to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Like there'll be a quota hunt that's 6 weeks long, but you could come here and hunt all through September, the first 2 weeks of October, and then like after December 1st. So like what I've noticed is like on my favorite pieces is like used to 10, 15 years ago, the WMAs were a ghost town until the rut, and then they weren't just pounded, you know what I mean? But they were getting hunted hard during the rut from a lot of the guys down south. And I get it, they come up here and they see a 2-year-old deer, and it's the biggest deer they've ever seen. Can't knock anybody for that. Like I'm happy for them, but like on my favorite WMAs now, it's flip flopped. It's a ghost town during the rut, especially during the week, because they can't get an out of state hunter in here, but every 5 years, and then so everybody's crowded early season and late season. And then, with all the information out, now about late season, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've seen hunting late season. Like, it's a bunch. Like,
wow.
It almost like discouraging.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of like the time of year where, like you said earlier, like you expect there to not really be any people out, right? Like you have like the woods to yourself to a degree where you can actually put on the type of hunt you want to put on, if you know a little bit about, a couple deer that you want to chase or, a group of bucks that you might kind of be aware of or whatever the case is. I don't have that problem here. Like PA, like late season is pretty well a ghost town.
Yes. And like what the game changer is like, as far as like the trail cameras and mainly the cell cameras, like I'm neutral on it. Like, the day that I don't use my trail cameras, it's going to be sad just because, like, I like just scouting and walking around just as much as I do. Or I like it more than I like sitting in the tree. Like,
yeah,
if I'm being honest, like I do, like, I just like getting my boots on the ground. But, what happens is you got guys that won't draw a quota hunt here, and they know they won't. And they'll come in August, and they'll drop 8 or 10 tactic cams that live in Florida. They'll come up here and hunt a group of 10 people, and 2 or 3 of them will kill nice deer. And then they know they won't be able to come back till December, so they'll just move their cameras around, change the batteries out. And then December 1st, they come back and they already got a decent game plan. So like, I'm on the fence about that, but like that has really changed the game as far as the public land hunting. So like when I say like I see people saying like ban cell cameras on public land, like I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. I do understand why they say it. I'm definitely not for banning them altogether because I'm not the guy that thinks that you get a picture of a deer and you go out and kill it. That's the biggest bullshit I've ever seen in my life. If you say that, you're just a crybaby. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're just a crybaby. I mean,
I've heard of more people doing that on private because what you were saying earlier, it's like, man, especially if you're on pressured public, you don't really know where that deer's headed. You know what I mean? A lot of times, now private, you might have a better idea. I see, I got a cell camera picture of this deer at this food plot at this time. I know he's going to be headed to here because, for whatever reason. it makes a little bit more sense, and maybe you can get to that spot more quickly or whatever. I've certainly have heard of people killing a deer with using a cell camera, but I don't hear about it very often. I'll put it that way.
I mean, like I've been, public land hunting, just like general background of myself, like over 15 years. I've been bow hunting over 20. I've been hunting over 30. And like, if I was to put the one thing that changed the game for me more than anything, it's my cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not the cell camera, it's the cell phone. And like with the way that Spartan Forge, like the apps are and stuff now, dude, that might as well be a cheat code. Like, and I use it, like it's badass, but like I can get way more out of that than I can my 5 cell cameras that I run, or just the Google searches you could do. And so like when I see a guy like bashing on the cell cameras or saying they should be illegal, then I feel like, maybe you need to like look at your background. Like I can remember not hunting with a phone, and I've got deer behind me that I've killed with traditional equipment, and like it's the cell camera isn't making that big of a difference as far as literally going and killing a deer when you get a picture of it.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think it's a good observation because, I do think the cell phone and like the apps and stuff like that have made the biggest difference, right? Because it's just made you a smarter hunter. You know what I mean? Like no other way to say it.
Yeah, where would we be without Onyx or Spartan or Hunt Stand? Like seriously, like I go in the woods and I see people with ribbon. Like I don't even touch it anymore because I know that's the old school guys that still got the flip phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, not only that, man, but you see some ribbon dudes, like that's the old school dude. I'm following that. What's he know?
Like,
you know what I'm saying?
So, the maps and the way the topography is on your phones, that's the biggest thing for me. That's what's killed more deer for me than anything. I'm 100% positive. Like, it doesn't always look like it does when you go and look at a piece like on your phone, like, oh man, that looks good. And then you drive 10 hours and you walk to it. And a lot of times, like it is a good spot, but sometimes it's not. But you save more time and you're more efficient with your cell phone than you are with anything. And I don't care what anybody says, like it kills way more deer than anything, because you're sitting there looking at the barometer and the 10-day forecast and hour by hour while you're in the stand. And 25 years ago, you weren't doing that. You're watching the local news.
Yeah. No, 100%, dude. I think it'd be interesting to ask people if you could either have trail cameras or you could have your phone with a mapping tool. Which would you, if you had to lose one, which would you be willing to lose?
Let's just be honest, man. If you hunt how I hunt, and they'll be lying if they say it different than I do, I'll get lost.
Oh, 100%, dude. It's happened to me. It happens to me every year.
Like I'm not saying that I won't be able to get back to my truck, but I'm going to get turned around big time until I walk up on something that, like a landmark or something. I can remember one time specifically, like years ago, not years ago, but probably like 5 years ago, I was hunting way back and my phone was like one bar and it literally drained my phone, like it went dead. And this has happened to me even more recent. Like I wasn't real familiar with the area. It was dark and my phone wasn't working. Like I was in bad shape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I wasn't panicking, but like there was thoughts coming in my head. Like, do I just sit down here till daybreak? That way I can get my bearings straight and I don't end up 5 miles from here at somebody's house, and so.
Yeah. No, dude, I've been there, man. It's 100%, man. It's, especially that big piece that I, hunt. There's a lot of, the way that place hunts is that you're kind of already on top of the mountain. And so there's not a lot of terrain change necessarily, like big changes, right? It's either like super steep and it's sheer, right? And you get down to the bottom, or you're on top. Is kind of how it works. And so everything's pretty flat, for the most part. Certain areas you'll find a little bit of terrain change and stuff like that, but a lot of it is flat. And so you don't have a lot of good kind of markers or anything like that to use as like wayfinding of like, oh yeah, I go to the, it's over 3 ridges and then I go down to the bottom and then I hit this stream. Like there isn't any of that. It's like, nope, you're going to walk this direction. It's going to be flat. It's going to look pretty much the same. And you're going to walk it for 2 miles and hope that you don't get off to the left or right. You know what I mean? And end up where you're not supposed to be or whatever. And so I've gotten turned around in there before. I remember the first time I went where I got turned around. I was by myself. I'd never been there before. I was going to scout and I got into an area and got turned around and I was using my phone, but my phone got the whirly bird thing where it started kind of, must have been like, there's no cell phone service there. So like it gets a little funky. So it's like, I usually carry like a Garmin GPS with me in my phone, and always have everything marked on both. That way, if I have to use the Garmin to get out, it may not take me the most convenient route out, but I can at least get directionally headed back to the right direction or whatever. And it shit out on me. And for whatever reason, I didn't take my Garmin with me on that trip or that day. And I was like, man, this is not good. I was like, this could end poorly. I was like, because I'm in the middle of, and this place is huge. We're talking like tens of thousands of acres. It's not like a 2,000 piece that you can just like walk. I'm going to walk west and I'll hit something. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, you could walk west there and be walking west for a while,
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely, one of those things. It definitely gives you the confidence to go into places that you're unfamiliar with, for sure. And I think you're right, man. I mean, that's things probably your phone's killed more deer than anything has probably.
I mean, I couldn't even keep up with my cameras if it wasn't for my phone.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah, 100%. I walked by one. This is how bad this is. I walked by one day and I was like, is that a trail camera up there? And I was like, man, who the heck, man, who put a camera there? Like this was a spot I was like I saw it from afar. I was like, man, what asshole put a camera in this spot? And I walk up on it, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's mine. It totally forgot I had it out. It's like, yeah, that's happened to me more than once where I thought someone else put a camera up, then realized it was mine. But shoot, man. So what's your plans for this year, buddy? I know, Missouri is potentially on the docket with headed there with me and Chad, which I hope you do. I think it'll be an awesome trip. We'll have a lot of fun. But outside of that, what's your plans?
Try to gain some permission from behind this chair I'm sitting in.
Yeah, there you go.
I locked down 200 acres during turkey season that I could only turkey hunt. I can't deer hunt it. I've got another guy that says his brother's got quite a bit of ground that he will let me hunt. He gave me his business card. I just haven't pursued it yet. And then I don't know. I've only been open 2 months, so a lot of these farmers I've only cut them once or twice. I'm going to get a few in my hip pocket before I start pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
But, hopefully I get on some of these private farms locally because, like, I'm in, like, the heart of, like, big buck mecca here. Like, I mean, I've seen deer running through this town I'm in, like, literally. Like, walked out on the sidewalk and seen deer, like, running through people's yards here. So that's the plan, man. Just try to find some private ground.
Nice. Awesome, man. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on, dude. I'm going to let you get back to work so you can cut some hair, get some of those business cards in your pocket so you can find some of these big bucks. But before I let you get out of here, let people know where they can find you, follow along with what you got going on, and let people know if they need a cut and they're local to you or they're passing through, man, where to find your shop.
So best way to catch me, I'm on Facebook, Josh Profitt. Instagram is BG Bowhunter or BG_Bowhunter. That's probably where I'm the most active. Shops in Seabury, Kentucky, Western Kentucky. And you would be surprised how many people I've cut off social media. Like, I've cut one guy that drove 3 hours. I've cut guys that lived 8 hours away that were here hunting. So if you want to, you know, get a cut and see the shop, that's where you find me.
Nice, man. Well, hey, when we hit Missouri, dude, bring your clippers. Shape me up.
I'm going to put a deer print on the side of your head.
Awesome, brother. But hey, man, good catching up with you, man. I'm happy for all your success. I had no doubt. I'm super stoked for you that things are working out the way they're working out. And, you know, take care of that family, as I know you will. And I look forward to seeing you this fall, man. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. And before I shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Osseo Gear, Tethered, Exodus Outdoor Gear, and Genesee Beer. And until next time, we'll see y'all.